Will Robertson, of course, the Reenactors Group, thereenactorsgroup.com, and of course, you can go to reenactorsinsurance.com. We are, of course, a place that if you are a historical reenactor, and I mean anything that is, I guess, from yesterday back, but I will exclude the fact that if you are one of the cowboy reenactors, you can't go to Target, get a hat, and get a Keith Urban shirt and call it cowboy reenacting. We're looking for historical reenactment with all the historical garb and, of course, the rules and all the other things that follow. With that being said, welcome to the show. I'm Will Roberts. I am the president of the group, so whenever you call, you might recognize my name, and some of you even physically seeing who I am because I've been to a lot of events. But I am the horse's mouth, so anytime you call, you will be speaking to me. So there it is. The insurance industry has changed quite a lot, and my disclaimer is that I am not an insurance person by law. I am purely just a person that is like you and has a love for the historical parts of our country, our world, and want to make sure that the history still lives on. So we are the stewards of the history, and that's why I love what I do, because the teachers don't get paid enough, and of course they can't wear all the really cool garb, and in a world of social media and everything needs to be now, and exciting and breathtaking and reality TV, that's where we come in as historical reenactors, because we not only tell the stories but live it and look it. So with that being said, I want to introduce today into the show one of the newest things that have come out and to my attention in the last few years, and certainly the gentleman that you're looking at by my side is a force to be reckoned with in the armored combat sports, because he has helped me, one, understand about it, and then also in my initial response of saying, I'm sorry, you do what? And thinking, wow, we cover this, has said to me, but here are the rules, Will. And that, of course, is Jay Brooks. He is Armored Combat Sports. And with that, my friend, I say welcome to you and welcome to the show, brother.
Welcome. Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah.
I hope we can answer some questions.
Yeah, I think we can. And more importantly than just answering questions is that I want to instill that when I honestly say your name in Armored Combat Sports, you're always talking about the safety. I mean, the history is so important, and many of the reenactors that call me up are always sort of spouting out how they have the right buttons and they have the right things. But quite honestly, one of the reasons why, if you look at the site, which of course you can see the website address down below, thereenactors.com or reenactorsinsurance.com, you'll see a new tab on there called Armored Sports and Armored Combat Sports, because Jay is my man in regards to letting people know all the things about it, not just, hey, wow, this is a cool sport because I can strike people. But with that being said, you are a huge proponent of the safety parts. Let's first describe what is armored combat, and then we'll talk about the safety.
Okay, so first off, thanks for having me here. So as we talk about armored combat recreates the sport spectacles of the 14th, 15th, and 16th centuries, where medieval knights, Renaissance knights would come together at festivals, at competitions, when they weren't at war, or sometimes in between the war. Right. They would have these festivals and compete against one another to see who was the most proud, who was the strongest, who was the greatest knight.
Okay.
In order to do this in a safe manner, rules were put in so that these knights wouldn't kill each other in these training tournaments, or in these special tournaments, or pastiludes, medieval games.
And what was the word? Pastiludes?
Hastilude.
Oh, okay.
Hastilude, of which jousting is part of is a hastilude.
Okay.
Jousting is a hastilude. These deeds of arms that we're performing are hastiludes. Knocking the crest off a helmet, in a crest tournament, that's a hastilude.
Okay.
So these were all medieval games that were done by medieval knights and the the nobility of the era.
Sure.
And so they would go and they'd fight in these tournaments and see who was the best fighter and earn prizes and renown, maybe find that fair maiden, whatever that was that they were looking for at the time. And there are a myriad number of reasons why they fought in these. But the real thing is to show how knightly you were, because he who does more is most worthy, according to Charney. Sure. So what we want to do is we want to do that same sport that they were doing and utilize those same safety rules. They knew what they were doing. They did this, to protect their lives and their livelihood. Yeah. And we're recreating this to strike each other full force with axes and weapons and to do this in a safe manner.
Right.
So we have an entire rule set. We actually have a couple of rule sets that you can follow that make sure that the armor is safe, that the materials are the materials that you need for protecting yourself in this equipment.
Wow. Well, I have to tell you, first of all, the one where you said that you have to knock a crown off the head, I just can't imagine being across from someone that I go, hey, didn't we see him in that last skirmish where we lost 100 men? He doesn't like me. I have a feeling he's going to go for my head. I don't know about that one, because that one sounds like, oops, well, I made a mistake. And by the way, back then they didn't have the Sue Happy America rules we have now that,
No, but they did have rules about being in the tournament. And if you broke those rules, you could lose your horses, you could lose your reputation, you could lose your castle, or the license to crenellate, which was to be able to put crenellations up in your castle.
Wow, awesome. Safety-wise, and the armor and the gear and the swords. Now, when you say, we strike at each other with the same force and blah, 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 blah. You know what? I remember being at Combat Con. Unfortunately, you weren't there this year, but we were all hoping this year that we might be able to do that. But unfortunately, a larger weapon called COVID-19 has stopped us. But, I watched that stuff, and you're right. There are some real blows. And then there are some times where you go, oh, this looks like an all-on battle where they'll release people and tell them to back up. I mean, let's talk about the armor. And I mentioned this to you before, but, I walked into a store on the wharf, Pier 39 in San Francisco, and they have this awesome armor, and the stuff's up there with blades crossing each other. And is that the same stuff? You just can go buy it anywhere?
It is absolutely not the same stuff. So, just like with other weapons, you have wall hangers, right? That's wall hanger armor, right? It's just like going into the thrift store and buying a pair of pistols, right? Yeah.
I don't know what thrift store you shop at, but
I live in New Hampshire, so you might be able to find them here, right? But anyway, armor has to meet specific standards. Mm-hmm. We have it codified within our rule sets. Both the IMCF rule set and HMB rule set both specify what the armor can be made out of.
Oh, right.
What its weight is, what the gauge or thickness is, what the Rockwell hardness is. Okay. So all of those things are measured, codified, and put in the rule set. So if armor doesn't meet that, it doesn't pass. Yeah. Our referees are trained with gauges, metallurgy skills, magnets, etc. Like, hey, that looks like aluminum to me. Oh, look, it's non-magnetic.
I was wondering what you use a magnet for. Okay, yeah.
So, right?
Okay.
And you can even use a magnet on stainless steel. If you use a rare earth magnet, it will attract to stainless steel. Yes. So they say stainless steel is non-magnetic. Yeah. It's not all non-magnetic.
Sure.
So you just have to have the high enough pull of magnet.
Right. In regards to the weapons and the swords, I know that we have exclusions on some of the stuff for the insurance here at the Reenactors Group, and one of them is, of course, sharp blades. Or let's see what you have.
So I have a sword here.
That's awesome. Sword.
Right? And you'll notice
that
it's got a wider than 2 millimeter edge.
Oh, interesting.
So there's a minimum edge requirement
Oh,
for all of
interesting.
our weapons.
Okay.
They must be blunt, and they also must have a little rounding to that edge as well.
Oh. So
if you
the
look
edge
there,
doesn't have an edge.
so it has a little bevel to it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't cut into things.
No, it flies. It reflects. Interesting thing that
Right.
you're saying that, because I kind of just thought, and this is great for everybody in the audience to know as well, especially all of the insurance people listening, is that, you know, when I thought, oh, okay, because you can go buy, because I've done some fencing and some combat stuff, you can go buy a blade and just hack it down. And as I do some of my knife or machete spinning, you go, oh, it's not sharp. But you actually have a gauge, so you're bringing a whatever, or whatever, and you're gauging.
Yeah, we have a gauge. It's actually a slide gauge. You can just
go across
3 millimeter, 2 millimeter, 4 millimeter.
Interesting. And then it has to fit.
Check our diameters for curve.
Interesting.
Because we have minimum curves.
Really? Okay.
And our points
are
all rounded as well.
That's awesome.
And so they have to meet minimum standards across the board, including weight.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie, that kind of looks like, in the front, looks like a butter knife.
Yeah, well.
However, I don't want to get hit by that butter knife.
We got to do what we got to do.
Yeah, you do. And you know what? The thing is that at some point, no matter what reenacting style and time period you do, it really is about the realness of it. However, I think the blood and the mayhem is something that anybody wants to skip, and I think everybody's okay with that. Let's talk a little bit about what has been some of the not pitfalls, but some of the things that you've had to, because I've spoken to you for years, a few years, about this sport, and now it's really starting to take hold. And I'm not surprised, because when you watch a lot of the programs on TV, and because there's a lot of streaming channels now, one of the biggest things you see is the medieval time periods and the fighting. What are some of the things that you're bumping into? Because I know, as the person who answers the phone all the time and being a weapons expert, unconditional weapons, that I get a lot of people that have misnomers about what we do in the sports. What are some of the things you bump into, if you don't mind me asking that?
So we have a lot of people who are very, very excited about getting involved, and they jump in without really studying what it is that we're doing, right, or asking the appropriate questions. They'll go out and they'll buy armor that doesn't meet standards.
Right.
They'll start making weapons. Oh, I'm forging swords in my yard. And suddenly they want to use those weapons. We actually have weapons testing from vendors. For a vendor to qualify with us, we actually run them through specific tests.
Okay.
Destructive testing. We do that with armor and with weapons.
Okay.
So they come into the Knights Hall. I'll have a new vendor will send me a piece of equipment. We'll beat the heck out of it, right?
Yeah.
And we'll say, okay, this is safe. That the rivets don't come out.
We pass.
Or this helmet, I wouldn't put it on anyone.
Yeah.
Right? The metal on this is terrible, right? And then away it goes. We let people know what our findings are, and then also what we do is because there are enough people currently making these things for this sport, you have a reputable vendor, right? They lose customers really quickly if their quality goes down.
Oh, yeah. Well, they lose the industry. They lose the industry.
Social media has helped us control cost to a degree and reputation of vendors. Because when we first started getting into this, a lot of vendors said they could make stuff, and they made substandard materials and caused people to have injuries.
Yeah, well, let me stop you there and say that I'm going to make a general note about equipment that you have really hit very hard, so to speak, and that is that the reason why we are probably one of the only two left in the country doing what we're doing is simply because people have abused the weapon handling, and and the guns and the so on, and don't mistake a weapon and think that you can carry it because of any kind of political reasons. But more importantly, what you do with your weapon dictates what happens with the future of reenacting, because I can tell you that if we hadn't been as diligent and safe based upon what you and I have been talking about in the last couple of years, you'd all be doing this in your garage. And the fact is that what you're saying, Jay, always makes me very happy to be dealing with someone that is so prominent in a sport like yours, because you know all it takes is one wrong move and someone just being stupid, and then here's worse, a group of people that do this agreeing with that person's methods and them being wrong, and then the industry, the insurance people, who, by the way, they're in the business of selling insurance. They're not in the business of paying out. They will immediately go bye-bye. So I want to tell you, I appreciate your always making sure you uphold the standards, because without further ado, you get nothing of this sport and the entertainment and the passion if you're not following the rules and trying to create more rules to be able to keep this going.
You're absolutely right. If the reason why I even incorporated in the first place was to get insurance, right? So the whole purpose right in the very beginning was in 2011, 2012 was to get insurance so that we could do this safely. The reason why I got involved with writing the rules was so that we could do this safely, that we could do all of these things that we want to do. But if we hold ourselves accountable, follow a rule set, follow procedures that allow us to be safe while doing this really crazy thing,
it's crazy.
We'll be able to do this thing, forever and grow it. And that's really the goal, right? Is to allow, people in every part of the country and even, internationally be able to do this in a safe manner. And because we have these rule sets, if people become our members, they get their insurance, they follow our rule set, they're insured for doing what it is that we do. And, if they want to do this in their backyards, but they don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have thousands and thousands of hours of events training in these rule sets to show their safety, right? And we have statistics at the IMCF championships of how many injuries we have in a 4-day period with, over 1,000 fights happen. Right? And when you have, less than a dozen people even go to a medic in that time period, that's pretty good. And that, I need a Band-Aid for my finger type of stuff. Right? So nothing really involving serious danger.
Well, again, I want to emphasize the fact that if anybody's out there, regardless of what time period you are, you have your people that know a lot about this, and you equally have as many new people wanting to start. And I always make a joke, I don't have any of my guns around here, but I always make a joke that, when I go out to an event and I see someone doing a reenactment with guns, whether they're mostly cowboy, and I see them do this with their gun, I go, awesome, so let's go educate. Because the fact of the matter is that, again, there are equally the amount of people that know a lot about this, and there are probably more people joining and wanting to start out. And to learn something wrong, any skill, especially one that involves combat or things that your safety, it is of the utmost importance, and that's why I appreciate what you're doing at Armored Combat Sports. And by the way, you can see on the bottom here Jay's information. You can contact him at the Knights Hall, and you can see the Instagram here, the Knights Hall, and get involved. Because I get people that will contact me and go, I want to just pick up a broadsword and start swinging it, and can I get insurance? Yes, you can, but I'm going to tell you right now that I don't have a 3-strike rule. Stupidity and me, we don't get along. I've been stupid too much in my life. I'm a guy. So the point is that when I get people like you, I go, awesome. I have someone who's smarter than me that knows what they're doing with this subject, and let's keep it going, because you've been doing this. How long have you been doing this whole thing?
So I've been doing medieval fighting since 1981.
Okay.
So for one, I had a skill set that it didn't seem, I had motivation and a skill set it didn't seem people had to get involved with leadership and making this happen from this standpoint. I don't think people had the vision of what this could become when we started doing this. In fact, when we started, I tried to get a bunch of people involved to think about this from an insurance standpoint, and they didn't even want to get insurance. And I thought that was crazy.
Yeah.
And I also knew that renting a venue would require insurance.
Sure.
So if we wanted to turn this from anything more than two guys in a backyard into something that could become, I have a 14,000 square foot fighting school here
Right.
that we keep people in here 7 days a week. So it has gone a long way from two dudes, me being fighter one. We had 4 of us go to Quebec to go fight in a tournament in February of 2012 to do the full contact steel. We were the first 4 guys from the U.S. to go do this.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. Wow. So you basically decided to do this because, and I have talked to someone recently, and I've talked to others that say, you mentioned Jay, you might as well just put the word safety in his name, because he's the man. He knows about the equipment. He knows about the safety. And again, I say to anybody out there wanting to get it started in armored combat, it seems pretty awesome. From all that I can guess, and plus the history is so rich and amazing. You really, if you have questions about armored combat, look at the bottom of the screen. You'll see Jay's information. If someone wants to join the organization, they simply would go there, submit some information, and then you help guide them, correct?
Absolutely. So you can find us at armoredcombatsports.com, connect to our Facebook page or Facebook group.
Yeah.
Our Facebook group has 2,600 plus people
Wow.
there, almost all willing to help you get involved. I filled this with veterans. I filled it with top-level vendors, top-level trainers are there. So if you have any information you want to know about the sport, this is a resource for anyone who wants to get
That's
involved.
awesome. Yeah.
And we're there to help you. And we're adding 15 to 30 people a day. Trying to get involved with us, and we just bring them in, welcome them, connect them with their local connection, and get them training the right way.
Yeah,
and hopefully they listen.
Yeah. Well, no, I appreciate that. I just want to know, actually, what was it? It was mounted shooting. I remember back in the early 2000s, that thing took off 10% a month. It was increasing. This is what's happening with armored combat, is that people are kind of digging this because, again, hey, TVs, film, and movies same thing, film, doesn't really hurt it because there's so much out there on the streaming content with people doing the medieval and the century, blah, 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 and that's awesome.
Yeah, I was part of Night Fight, produced Night Fight, the television show on History Channel, and a lot of our fighters participated in that, and that because that hit the mainstream, people have seen it now, and they're like, oh, let's get involved. Yeah. And
that's all it takes.
We're out here ready to help you.
Yeah. Whenever you see a genre move up, like cowboys go in and out, you will get people like you who are experts. And, definitely if you want to check more out about armored combat sports, you can go to the website at the bottom of the screen. Hey, do you guys have your T-shirts, any T-shirts yet? Let's say Armored Combat Sports.
I'm sorry.
Do you have any T-shirts yet? That say,
our T-shirt link will be up in the next week.
I want one. That would be awesome. All right. So
it'll be up in the next week. We had a vendor that was going to do it all online for us, but COVID closed them down. Yeah. So now we're moving into a different vendor. Yeah.
Oh, and one thing I want to close with is that you are doing Zoom training, right?
Absolutely. We have. Not only are we training 50 plus people in studio, but we're now opened up to training around the world.
That's awesome.
I'm building up a Zoom student catalog of people just joining in. Because of COVID, I had to learn how to do new skills and how to get my product out to other people and really help people learn how to do this.
Yeah.
And by learning how Zoom worked and doing it with my in-house students, I felt comfortable enough that I could start training folks that are outside with the technology.
Absolutely. And I love that because, look, if there's anything, folks, first of all, Jay, thanks for coming on the show. And I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You can see,
happy to be here.
Yeah, and we'll check in with you again. I think we should try to do this often because you're very good to interview. But I will say that if you have any other questions, please, at the bottom of the screen, check out Jay. Also, on the end of reenactorsinsurance.com or thereenactors.com, you can see the Armored Combat Sports information. You are literally going to be connected to Jay when you send something because I'm routing it to Jay. And if you have any questions, you can call me. I'm probably going to divert you to Jay because more importantly than anything is that I need someone that understands it, because if you call me up, one of the biggest problems I have in what we do is the group leaders will call me up, and most of the time people don't know what they're doing with the insurance. And more importantly, you got to go back to your group and try to answer questions that you just asked me, and I'm the middleman of this. So I'm going to give you the J in regards to Armored Sports because I don't know enough about it, and he knows more than enough about it to where he can get you running in the right direction. So with that being said, thanks for coming on the show.
I have one final point.
Yeah.
If you're looking for an Armored Combat Sports membership, make sure you do it through the Armored Combat Sports portal.
That's right.
So that we can account for things accordingly.
That's right. So with that being said, we have our forms to sign up for insurance. Don't do that. I'm telling you right now, don't do that. Go through Jay, and because I like what he's doing to be able to do the ABC 1, 2, 3 method of how it's supposed to be done, and so that way I know if you do it, you're following the right space. So with that being said, thanks for coming on the show. Don't leave me yet. I'm going to close with some comments. Okay.
All right, cool.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Again, I'm Will Roberts. I'm the president of the organization, thereenactors.com, and just go there, or reenactorsinsurance.com. If you have any questions about the insurance, it is $2 million, $5 million. You can sign up with us. If you're Armored Combat, please go through our Armored Combat link to do that. We also try to provide NAPR if you have something going on and you have a press release. I've been in the news industry for about 38 years, and so the real news industry, not the fake news industry. And the fact is that we want to help fill the seats with behinds and people who are enthusiastic and excited about this, because again, we tell the history like no one else can do, because when you see us, you go, whoa, that's a real whatever. And you see that, and we know in most cases we have a better handle on the history and the exciting parts about it. And in this day and age where everything is bling bling and squirrel, shiny objects, we want to make sure that you get the best information and that you pay attention to what we're saying, because remember that if you don't do it right, history will repeat itself, and we don't want to do the bad history. So with that being said, I appreciate you. Look at the bottom of the site for any of the other information. Of course, visit reenactorsinsurance.com. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions for Jay, you know how to reach him. We'll see you next time, okay?